Okay, today's daf is Masechta Menachos Daf Yud Ches, number 18. And we're just going to finish off a sugya of Pigel, and then we go on back to Mincha. So we were discussing yesterday the interesting opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said in our Mishnah, and just review the Mishnah, if you reverse the roles in your thinking of Pigel, that means when you were doing the Kemitza, okay, let's get the guy doing the Kemitza. He's doing the Kemitza on the let's see the picture. He's doing the Kemitza, and he says that my thought is that I'm going to eat the Kemitza chutz lizmanoi, at the end of the extended time. Or he thought about or expressed, usually it's expressed, that he's going to take the shirayim, the leftovers, and put it on the mizbeach. Well, the kmitza is not eaten, the leftovers is not put on the mizbeach. So he reversed the order. He reversed this pigel thought. So Rabbi Eliezer says it's possible. And the Gemara yesterday brought, Rabbi Eliezer says it's possible, the Chachamim said it's kosher in the Mishnah. And now we're going to just examine Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara brought a pasuk that perhaps Rabbi Eliezer holds from Yeyochel that you get chorus from it. So if that's the case, the Gemara asked, if that's the case, that's how you know it's pigel, then you should be able to get chorus with it. And in our Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says poisel. Poisel means it's possible. If you would eat it, you shouldn't eat it. But if you do eat the mincha, you get, you did an avera, but you don't get chorus. And if Rabbi Eliezer is learning it from a pasuk yeyochel, then you should get chorus. So the Gemara initially said that the Gemara initially said that this could be a machloikis in a brisa, where a brisa says hashoichet es hazevach, someone shechs an animal, right? Lishtois midomai lemachar, but he's thinking, or he said out loud, I'm going to drink from the blood tomorrow. Okay. You don't drink from the blood. You actually sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. So is that pigel? So the Brisa says, the Chachamim say it's kosher. Rabbi Eliezer says it's pasul. But then the Gemara wanted to understand that perhaps this Rabbi Yehudin, who said paisel, Rabbi Yehuda said it's paisel by a different case, but Rabbi Yehuda will hold by lishtois damei lamachar you get chorus. So Rabbi Yehuda basically is the one that says you get chorus. Maybe his opinion is that Rabbi Eliezer said you would get chorus, and only if you have a thought lahaniach midamai lemachar. If instead of saying you sechted the animal and you said I'm going to leave the blood till tomorrow, I'm not going to bring it on the mizbeach. I'm not doing anything with the blood. So that is not a pigel thought. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's possible. In that case, so it must be that Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you actually use a language of achila, that you're going to drink from the blood tomorrow, that's a pigel thought, a chorus pigel thought. That's what the Gemara wanted to say. So the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. So the Gemara says, "Like we're reading the Brisa wrong. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds when you reverse the order and you say, I'm going to drink from the blood tomorrow, or I'm going to eat the kamitza. So leika, there's no chorus there. It's only pasul, but it's not chorus. V'hacha gimel machloikis b'davar. There's a 3-way machloikis regarding a different matter. What happens again if somebody says he shechs the animal and says I'm going to leave the blood and not do anything? I'm going to leave the blood sitting around for a day. So what is the din? So you'll have 3 opinions in the brisa. The first opinion is going to hold it's kosher, because what did you do wrong? It's not a pigel thought. So Tanakama Sava Bahanach Pligi. Only if you have a pigel thought, actually eating, an eating thought. You're going to eat, or you're going to, or you're going to give it on the mizbeach. But lahaniach. But if you just say I'm going to leave the blood and not do anything, divrei hakol kosher. Both Rabbi Eliezer and both the Chachamim are going to hold it's kosher, because the Torah only asered only if you're going to have an eating and drinking thought, but not if you say, I'm going to leave the blood and not do anything. So then it's still a kosher animal. Obviously, even if after you said lahaniach, you did a kosher zrika. That's what we're talking about. So you can eat the animal. Rabbi Yehuda would go to Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda Sava. Rabbi Yehuda holds Mahanach Pligi. Rabbi Yehuda holds no. They're arguing by a pigel thought. That Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Chachamim are arguing by a pigel thought. But lahaniach, divrei hakol posel. Everybody will hold it's posel. So the Gemara, everybody holds it's posel. Now that's not a pigel thought, but you just slaughtering an animal, saying I'm going to leave the blood for tomorrow. Everybody, according to Rabbi Yehuda, holds its posel. Chachamim and who always holds its kosher. Rabbi Lezer holds its posel. My tama. What's the reason? Gezerah mixas dome ate kol dome. So that means that if we have a gezerah that if you leave over part of the blood, maybe you're going to leave over all the blood and not do anything. If you leave over the entire blood, then it becomes nicer. If you don't do anything, if you actually don't do anything, then it's nicer. So therefore, if you think about not doing something, you passel the carbon. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda told them, won't you agree to me? If you actually didn't follow through and do anything with the blood, the animal's passel, it's nicer, right? Because you didn't sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, so the animal becomes nicer. So so just by thinking and saying you're going to do that, even if you don't follow through on that thought, it should also be passel. So Rabbi Lezer Yehuda is of the opinion that we have a gzeira, and that everybody agrees by saying that you're going to do it tomorrow, even if you didn't sprinkle the blood tomorrow, or you didn't, but just by saying that I'm going to leave it around, not do anything, then it's passel. Also, Rabbi Lezer, and there's an opinion called Rabbi Lezer, and Rabbi Lezer, he's a later Tana, and he says Af bezu Rabbi Eliezer poisel v'chachamim machshirim. He says that the earlier Tanoim had a machlokes regarding lahaniach. Rabbi Eliezer says it's posel, and the chachamim say it's kosher. So that's the din. So says the Gemara asks the question and tells us a nice little story. You just said, V'sava Rabbi Yehuda. You said about Rabbi Yehuda that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is about Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim, that both Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim hold that if someone announces when he shechs the animal that lahaniach midomai lamachar, that he's going to leave the blood and not do anything tomorrow, he's going to just leave it around. Divrei hakol pasel. Everybody agrees he already paseled the carbon just by saying that. Is that the case? Well, Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, "Kishalachti lamatzos midoisai eitzer Rab Loza ben Shamua." I went to squeeze the brain of, let's say, of Rab Loza ben Shamua. Rebbe had a lot of questions, and Rebbe had a teacher, Rab Loza ben Shamua, who answered him his questions. The Amrila and others express that what Rebbe was doing, lamatzes midoisav shel Rab Loza ben Shemua. He was trying to see how, everybody's saying Rab Loza ben Shemua is so smart, so he wanted to test Rab Loza ben Shemua. It was like a challenge for him to see how smart Rab Loza ben Shemua is. Matzasa Yosef Habavli Yosef Lafanov. He found Yosef Habavli was sitting in front of Rebbe. And Yosef Habavli was learning from Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua was teaching Yosef Habavli all his learning until they reached an interesting topic. Okay, Amalai. So Yosef Habavli asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, Rebbe, Hashochet es hazevach la'aniach midamei lamachar. The guy shechts his carbon, and when he's shechting the carbon, he says, I'm going to not do anything with the blood till tomorrow. Maho, what's the deal with the carbon? Can he now sprinkle the blood and make it a kosher carbon after saying such a thing? Amalai, so Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua said, kosher. Arvis, Yosef Ababli asked him the same question. Amalei kasher. Shachris, the next morning, he asked him the same question. Amalei kasher. Tzaharayim, by lunchtime, he asked him the same question. Amalei kasher. Mincha, by mincha time already. Funny reason. Amalei. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua told him the same answer. Kasher. But you should know, Elish Rabbi Eliezer poisel. Rabbi Eliezer says it's pasal. Oh boy! So he now said he brought in Rabbi Eliezer. So Havul Panav Shel Yosef Hababli. So Yosef Hababli smiled. That's what I was looking for. I needed to find Rabbi Eliezer says it's pasal. Amalai Yosef. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel said, Yosef, Kimeduma ani shloi kivnavnu shmuasenu adata. Do you believe that I didn't paskin correctly up until now? That means you Yosef Hababli agree with Rabbi Eliezer that it's possible? Amalai. So Rabbi Yosef Hababli said, Rabbi Hain, yes, I always agreed with you that it's kosher, but I needed to hear that there's an opposing opinion, that it's not everybody that says that it's kosher, that there is an opposing opinion called Rabbi Eliezer who says it's possible. Why? Why do I need to hear that there's an opposing opinion? Because Yosef Habavli continues, Elish Rabbi Yehuda, what I was learning by Rabbi Yehuda's yeshiva, he told me possible, shonali. He told me it's possible. V'chazarti al kol tamidav v'vikashti li chavev v'lo matzasi. And I reviewed my learning, and I could not find anybody who agrees with Rabbi Yehuda's assessment that this case would be puzzle. Now that you taught me, Rabbi Eliezer says it's puzzle. You returned me my aveda. In other words, now I can, sleep at night, so to speak. That Rabbi Yehuda, who said puzzle, is aligning himself with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Zolgu ein of demoyes shel Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel. Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel got very emotional with Yosef Habavli's motivation, and he said, Amar Ashreichem Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim are very praiseworthy. Shedivrei Torah chavivim aleichem b'Yosef. The words of Torah are so precious by them, because really all Yosef Habavli needed to know is the halacha, and the halacha is it's kosher. But he had to find that the other Rabbi Yehuda, who said puzzle, who is he coming with? He didn't walk away. So Moa Hafti Karalav Mikra Hazeh. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel read him the pasuk. Moa Hafti Teresecha Kol Hayoim Hi Sichasi. How beloved Torah is that even my non-intentional conversation is about Torah. Even the inconsequential things, I'm so excited to learn. Now, Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua continued, and he said, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda aligns himself with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, why would Rabbi Yehuda go against the Chachamim? Because Rabbi Yehuda is Benoi Rabbi Eli. Rabbi Yehuda is the son of Rabbi Eli. Now, okay, the Rabbi Eli, his father was Talmidei Rabbi Eliezer. So basically, his father, Eli, was the student of Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Yehuda went with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. That's why Rabbi Yehuda, when you went to his school, you Yosef Habavli, Rabbi Yehuda taught you the Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. That's the way this brisa ends. So it's clearly that Rabbi Yehuda himself knows it's a machlokes, but Rabbi Yehuda paskined like Rabbi Eliezer. But you just told me that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion on the matter is that even the Chachamim would say pasal. That's the Gemara's question. If you hold that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that everybody holds pasal, what did he mean that you returned me my lost object? That means now I can sleep better at night. I understand Rabbi Yehuda because he aligns himself with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. You didn't fully satisfy Rabbi Yehuda. Your understanding Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't even hold that anybody holds it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda says even the Chachamim say it's possible. So the Gemara says reverses. Oh, so what do you want to say? Elamai kosher. Elamai, what do you want to say? that even Rabbi Yehuda holds that Chachamim say kosher Rabbi Eliezer paisel leshnayu umay ihachi my ha mipnei anan namli put to kamasninine. You don't have to say that that the reason why he apostles is because he liked Rabbi Eliezer. We also hold that it was a machlokes. We also learned that it's a machlokes. It's not just Rabbi Yehuda said it's a machlokes. We also agree that it was a machlokes. So this whole Ella, the Gemara reverts back to you're right. Livri akol pasas naya. Rabbi Yehuda holds, everybody holds it was possible. Umay hachzarti li evidase. Why did Yosef Habavli be satisfied with the teretz? The hadalemi or shum pasal spoiled him. At least there was somebody that held it's possible. In other words, Rabbi Loza ben Shamua, Rabbi Loza ben Shamua, he said on the top of the page that there is a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim regarding lahaniach. If you say lahaniach midamai, okay. Yosef Habavli heard from his Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda, who said pasul. So but now that Yosef Habavli heard from Rabbi Loza ben Shamua that Rabbi Eliezer holds its pasul, so even though Rabbi Yehuda holds everybody says pasul, but once Yosef Habavli knew that even his Rabbi Loza ben Shamua agrees that there is at least one opinion that says pasul, this calmed down Yosef Habavli. At least he knows that Rabbi Yehuda is not off the rails. At least there is an opinion that says that Rabbi Eliezer would agree that it's pasul. But Ein Chanami, Rabbi Loza ben Shamua held that it's still a machlokes, and the Chachamim hold kosher, and the halacha is that it is kosher. Okay, we begin a new Mishnah. So the Mishnah begins like this. The Mishnah begins discussing, we know, let's go back to the pictures of the Karban Mincha. Let's go how it was made. Very important. First, they poured oil in a pan, okay? Then they poured the solas. Then they made belila, means mixing. You see the guy mixing? Then what was called yitzika, which is pouring the oil into the pan after the remainder oil of the jug back into the pan. So you had like 2 times oil, I guess. One time, then you mixed it, and then you added the last remaining oil. Then you put the frankincense, and then the Kohen brought it to the Mizbeach. Then he did the Kemitza, and then after the Kemitza, he put back the Levine, and he was makter it. This we saw previously. I just want to point out to you that in certain like minchas challah, let's say, where the Torah discusses that you have to bake it first. So then there was another step before you did the Kemitza. So imagine, look at this picture over here. You have I guess it looks like a thick matzah, because of course you couldn't bake chametz there. You had to fold it twice over into these bars, and that's how the Kohen made Kemitza. It's a little hard you break it off on the top and the bottom, but that was a hard, working with your thumb and pinky, because this is already a baked goods. And that's how you made the Kemitza on the baked type of minchas. There's one type of mincha that's called a minchas rakikin, which just has another step that they smear it with oil after it was baked. They make it like a J or something like that. So the Mishnah is just speaking. What happens if you didn't do all that? So the Mishnah says, Lo yotzak, if you didn't do yitzika, that's the last thing that you're doing. Lo balal, if you didn't mix the dough with the oil. Lo pasas, or you didn't break it into pieces. Lo malach, or you didn't salt it. Remember, you salt it on the way before you pour it onto the mizbeach. Lo heinif, or you didn't certain menachos a few menachos need to be tnufa. Lo higish, if the kohen didn't bring it and touch it with the klisharas to the wall of the mizbeach. Or shepasus on pita merubas, you made it into very large, let's call it very large, big pieces. Instead of double folding it, I guess you just fold it once. Or by the minchas rakichin, you didn't do that smear of oil. All these things, if you didn't do that when you made the mincha, nevertheless, kishera, the mincha is kasha. Says the Gemara, my lo yotzek. What does it mean that you didn't do yitzika? That last, pouring of oil after you did the belila. Ilema lo yotzek klal doesn't mean you didn't do that. So why is the mincha kosher? Ikuva kasaba. The Torah says it twice to tell you that if you don't do it, the mincha is going to be puzzle. Ella, what lo yotzek means, lo yotzek kohen elazar. If a kohen didn't do it, or in Yisrael did it, that's still kosher. You don't need a kohen to make the mincha. If that's the case, loy bolal mami. What does loy bolal mean? Loy bolal kohen elazar. That if you don't mix it, if the kohen didn't mix it, but a Yisrael mixed it, it's kosher. So that implies that if you don't do bila at all, loy bolal klal, if you don't do mixing at all, that's psula. That would be puzzle. Is that true? We go on the base. For Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shishim Nivlolim, acting up my computer. Okay. Well, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shishim Nivlolim, Shishim Be'echad Ein Nivlolim. We learned in the Mishnah that 60, if you put 60 esroinim, let's say isarin, a flour, into a pot, then you could put one log of oil because the oil will get it all over. If you have shishim be'echad, if you have 61 pounds of flour, esroinim of flour, ein nivloim, then you can't put oil there. So you should not put more flour into the pot than 60, because once you hit the number 61, a lug is not going to be enough, and you can't put 2 lugs. Says the Gemara, big deal if you're not going to be able to, the oil is not going to get mixed around into the, why not? So why can't they make 61? You don't need to have oil in there. You don't have to have that the oil was all over in the flour. But now we learned in the Mishnah, loy balal kshera, even if you didn't do bila at all, it's kosher. The Omer Rab Zera said, "Kol aroy lebila ein bila ma'akeves by v'chol she'ein aroy lebila bila ma'akeves." Mar answered that by 60 you potentially could do bila. It's true that you don't have to mix it, but if you wanted to, you could mix it. So therefore, if you don't mix it, that's okay. But if it's so much flour in there that you can't even mix it, and mixing it will not do anything, then you have a problem. But the bottom line is, the way our understanding of this whole thing is that bila, if you don't mix it, it's still going to be kosher. So if you miss that step, if you miss the bila step, if you don't do this this is the bila step, you see, the bila step, if you don't do this, it's okay. So why does our Mishnah imply that it's not okay? So the Gemara is going to say like this, you're right. Hakadis or hakadis. Lo yatzak, if you don't do yitzika, means lo yatzak kohen elazar. If the kohen didn't do it, only Yisrael did it, then it's kosher. But if you don't do yitzika at all, then it's pasul. But loy bolal means loy bolal klal. Even if you didn't do bila at all, it's still kosher. So there's certain things by a mincha that the Torah repeated, that the Torah says you have to do it. And bila is one of those things that the Torah didn't repeat. So you don't have to do it. And therefore, if you didn't do it, it's kosher. Oisha pasam pita merubas, says the Gemara kashera. Hashta like pasas klal, if you didn't break it apart into smaller pieces, if you didn't do this step, okay, what was the pasas oisha lapitim? Let's say the picture. If you didn't do this step, we learned that it's kosher. So who cares if I only folded it once? If I folded it once, it's possible. If you didn't fold it at all, it's kosher. If you made it into big pieces, is what's the problem if you only fold it once? Answers the Gemara, my pita merubas means shariba piti. It doesn't mean that you folded it once. It means you folded it many, many times and you made it like crummy. So that's not you're not supposed to do that. So then it's still kosher. The Iba is saying, if you want, I could tell you, loylam pita merubas mamish. Even if you folded it once, the Mishnah has to teach you that it's kosher if you just fold it once. Because Mao the same, I would have thought, if you don't fold it at all, if you don't fold it at all, it looks like a challah, that's fine. But once you fold it once, so it's not a challah, but it's not a pitim. It's not a small piece. I would think that it's not kosher. Kamash Malam, that the Mishnah teaches you that even if you just fold it once and you didn't double fold it to make it smaller, it's still going to be kosher. Now the Gemara just continues another 2 minutes and then we'll stop. Let us say our Mishnah is not like the opinion of Rab Shimon. We're just learning that a Yisrael could prepare the mincha. But it seems that Rab Shimon is going to hold only a kohen could prepare the mincha. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rab Shimon says, Kol kohen she'ena moida ba'avoda. If a kohen, it doesn't believe in the service of his kahunaship. In other words, he puts out on his Instagram page that he doesn't believe in being a kohen. So he can't do any job in the even if he wants to, we're not going to let him have a job in the base of Migdash. If you believe loisia, that you believe in what you're doing, then you get the presence of the shlamim. If you agree that the kohen is supposed to do these services, then you get the presence of shoy kayamin. But if you don't agree, you're just mocking the whole thing. They don't even allow you to do the service. But even if you did the service, we're not going to give you the special gifts that the kohen gets. The Eli El Zubavad. I only know that you can't do the service of bringing a korban. Menayin l'rabas tesvav avoidus hayitzikis vablilas vapsichas vamlichas vatrufas vagasha vakmitzas aktaras vamlikas hakabalas vazoyis vashkoy soita rifus aglo taras mitzarnas is kapayim beimifnim benuchotz. If a kohen mocks any of these jobs, including yitzika, which is the squeezing of the oil onto the mincha, and belila, menayin, how do I know that the kohen, if he mocks it, we don't let him do it? If he doesn't agree that he's supposed to do the service, if he denies, so to speak, that God ever commanded him to do that service, then he can't do it. But the bottom line is that Rabbi Shimon's opinion is that Yitzika and Belila is something that should only be done by a Kohen. And our Mishnah implies that it could be done by Yisrael. Rab Nachman says, "Loikash, not a difficulty." A minchas kohen, which what Rab Shimon is talking about, where there is no kmitza, so then only kohens could do it. But our Mishnah is talking about the minchas Yisrael, because a regular Jew brings a mincha. A minchas Yisrael, the bas kmitzi, a regular Jew who brings a mincha. So the jobs of the kohen begin mikmitza ve'elech mitzvah kuna. When from the kmitza and onwards, then you need a kohen. But limed, that teaches you al yitzika belila sheksher b'zar, the preparation of the mincha, the yitzika and the belila, that's kosher even with a non-kohen. But minchas kahanim, the labas kmitza, but when a kohen brings a mincha, so then mi'ikara from the very beginning, boy a mincha kahuna, you need a kohen to do it. Because it's not something that's that needs a kamitza. Because when a kohen brings a mincha, by the way, they just throw the whole thing on the mizbeach. Amalei Rava, so Rava asks, minchas kahanim eichus rabel yitzika. How do you know you need by a minchas kohen yitzika? The minchas Yisrael. You learn it because minchas kohen. It doesn't say you do yitzika by a minchas kohen when you prepare it, but you learn it from a mincha that a regular Jew brings. So ma hasam kasher bazar, av hachinami kasher bazar. So let us say that just like a minchas kohen is kosher, is a minchas Yisrael is kosher with a non-kohen, av hachinami. So a minchas kohen should be allowed to be prepared by a non-kohen kasher bazar. Ikeda amri. Others say Amar of Nachman loy kasher kam benikmotzos kam b'shenim kmotzos. The kasher that it's not difficult. That Rab Shimon is talking about a minchas nisochim that was brought along with a carbon. So that was brought on the Mizbeach. So there, it had to be prepared by a kohen. Our Mishnah is talking about a regular Minchas Yisrael. How do you know when you prepare a Minchas Nisachim, the mincha that's brought with a regular carbon, how do you know you have to do Yitzika, pour oil on it a little bit? Minik matzah is from a regular mincha. So kinnik matzahs, it has to be like a regular mincha that you do kmitza on. Mahasan kasher b'zar, but you just told me that just like over there, it's kosher b'zar, av hochinamik kasher b'zar. So even over here, by a minchas nisachim should also be kosher with a non-kohen. Bottom line is, we cannot resolve Rab Shimon's opinion with our Mishnah. It cannot be resolved. So therefore, our Mishnah holds that Yitzika Belila can be done by a non-kohen. And Rab Shimon is of the opinion that they could only be done with a kohen. El Machmarta must be Masnisen. Our Mishnah is the loy. Rabbi Shimon is not like Rabbi Shimon. Okay, and that's why Rabbi Shimon needs only a kohen to do these services, to prepare the mincha. Okay, a good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos, Shakar. Thank you so much.
Okay, very good.
Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos, everybody.